And who are the Bilderbergs?
Well, it's a group of probably around 125 to 130 people that meet every year, heads of state, presidents, prime ministers, the heads of the Federal Reserve and Bank of Canada, and multinational corporations like British Petroleum and Coca-Cola, and the heads of media, and all these really influential people who hold a lot of weight and have the ability to affect change in the world. That's who meets at the Bilderberg meetings every year. The name itself, they don't even technically have a name. Bilderberg is the name of the hotel where they first met back in 1954. So they've tried to remain secret for a long, long time, and it's only recently that the general population is starting to become aware of the Bilderberg group. I mean, people at G8 summits, people think, well, there's a lot of power, there's a lot of influence right there to affect change. And look at the protests that show up to G8 meetings. The people at Bilderberg have way more power and influence than anyone at G8 meetings, yet there's a media blackout. So right away I have to ask myself, well, why is that? Why isn't anybody covering this? These guys are bigger than G8 guys.
Up until about 6 years ago, we never saw in major U.S. papers or Canadian papers never a mention of Bilderberg. Now it's finally all over the place. Europe, it's all over the place. What is that a sign of? What is that a sign of that this is happening?
It's a sign that an independent press is growing. What I don't know is, are enough of the public listening? That's my great prayer, is that enough of the public are listening. Because you can keep telling them, I can keep telling them, but is there enough of the public going to listen against the tidal wave of trash media? All the cheap thrill stuff, all the commercial stuff. Are people really going to learn what's going on? Because what is happening to the United States, to Canada, to Mexico is terrible, terrible, terrible stuff.
Can you talk about the American Union? I mean, the CFR writes the white papers for their agenda. They carry out Bilderberg's orders. That's on record. And even Lou Dobbs on CNN saying, American Union, end of Canada, end of U.S. They are actually, through the trade deals, already starting to bleed us.
Well, I breezed through what in Canada we've referred to as the Manley Report. John Manley was a previous Deputy Prime Minister, and he sat on a Council of Foreign Relations committee with Mexicans and Americans. The two were John Manley and Thomas Aquino, who's president of the Council of Chief Executives, a bunch of very big business guys. And they put this report together. And it started off by saying, does it not make sense that Canada and the U.S. should be one, that we should have a common currency? Does it not just make enormous sense that we should have a common border? To ask the question is to answer it. Now that was right in the report. I know they're just waiting for us to look the other way so they can whisk it through.
They're upset about the fact that they're being exposed.
Well, I'm sure they are. I mean, look at the tinted windows. They don't want to be seen. They don't want even anybody to know they're here. So I'm sure they're ticked, and that's why we're here, to try to expose them. I think the overall objectives of the Bilderberg Group have been to unite various areas of the world in order to set up the New World Order, the one world government. They're the ones who are responsible for the formation of the European Union, which really didn't happen that long ago. It was set in place maybe 8 or 9 years ago. So those are the guys who have the influence and the power, and they are the ones who are also going to be setting up the North American Union over here, and there's also going to be an Asian Union and an African Union, and those are the guys who are working to bring it together.
And about this North American Union, what would be so bad about joining together? I believe it would be Canada, Mexico, and the United States.
Well, it's essentially the centralization of power into fewer hands. That's what's going on. Canadians, Americans, and Mexicans will lose their sovereignty, their right to govern themselves as an individual nation. And the economies of all three of the nations will be merged into fewer and fewer hands. So I can see an obvious, clear problem with that. The moment that power gets diverted into fewer hands, you got to be concerned. Because let's face it, the elite of the world are no different from the ancient civilizations who want to rule and conquer. So that's what we see happening with the North American Union.
Who are the Illuminati?
Yeah, well, the Illuminati is one of the more influential organizations that popped up a few hundred years ago. It was in Bavaria, Germany, in 1776. It was started by a man named Adam Weishaupt. Actually, it was the Rothschild banking family who came up with the idea of the organization, and they simply appointed Adam Weishaupt to head the organization because of his ties with the occult. So he even stated himself that the word itself, Illuminati, was derived from Lucifer himself, and it means bearers of the light. See, they see themselves as having the hidden knowledge, so they're bright. They're bright with the hidden knowledge. They're the illuminated ones. So that's where the term essentially comes from. But the Bavarian government actually banned the Illuminati. I believe it was like in the 1790s or something. One of their key members, having important documents on him, was actually struck by lightning, and a police officer found the documents on him, which outlined the goals of the organization. Two of the main goals, by the way, are to overthrow all civil governments and to destroy Christianity. So anyways, the Bavarian government literally put a ban on secret societies and the Illuminati in general. So today, that term has become somewhat cliche because they don't necessarily refer to themselves as the Illuminati anymore. When a ban takes place, it doesn't mean the organization disappears. It simply means they go underground and they become a little bit more secret, and may even change their names, change their location. Which is the case with the Illuminati. They branched off and do things like the Bilderberg Group and the Trilateral Commission and the Council on Foreign Relations and these types of things. So really, they never went away. They just simply rebranded themselves and spread out, and the agenda still continues. I still refer to the men at the top as the Illuminati. It's a perfectly fitting word for what they're into. What fascinates me, like the Bible, and whether you believe in God or think that the Bible is true or not is kind of irrelevant. The fact of the matter is the current global elite do believe in it. They believe in it very strongly. They study it, they know it. And what's interesting is there's a story in the Bible about the Tower of Babel, a time where King Nimrod of Babylon had set up his, all the people were one tongue and one language, and basically on the verge of a universal consciousness. And it goes on to tell us that God was not going to allow his people to be under the direct control, united as one, under the direct control of Satan, basically. So what he did is he separated the nations and he confused the languages, which in turn, what that did is set Satan back a few thousand years, and essentially what he's been doing ever since then is trying to unite everything back together to the way he almost had it way back then. I would sum up the New World Order agenda as bringing people away from God. Unwittingly. Not necessarily, consciously against God or rejecting God, but almost subconsciously they decide to go their own way. And that's the whole goals of the New World Order, in my opinion.